We should. Trump is probably going to come out to do. He's doing that to the other. He has been. Here's Albert at the sports bar.
Oh yeah, okay.
Here's Albert being arrested while working. He had long hair.
Is that actually him?
Yep. He got arrested. They call it death walk before we had travel pool with everyone.
Hey guys, welcome to Fox 5 Live here in the studio. I'm here with Mike Bischoff.
Nice and proper.
Yeah, you guys are looking at a shot right now in Union Square in New York City. Hillary Clinton is starting her book tour. We're going to have our very own Tom Fitzgerald Fitz come chat about that in a little bit. But Mike, you're back from a day off of work and you're back in house to work on a story today. What are you working on?
That's up to Tom Fitzgerald.
He's working with Fitz.
After we get done talking with you, then we'll figure out what we're doing for the day.
Cool, yeah,
something
lots of political.
Nationally.
Yep.
Something national politics, I'm sure.
And speaking of that, we have a bump shot right now up at the White House where you've definitely done some shooting at this exact location. President Trump meeting with, I think, the Dutch, right?
Is it Dutch? I'm not sure who's with him today.
Yeah. We're going to check in on that because it's just all coming in right now. But we're also going to have Gary McGrady come over and chat a little bit of weather as we see sort of these hurricanes start to trickle down, become tropical storms, tropical depressions, and now move into Georgia. We've been seeing some updates all morning from the governors of South Carolina and other states as they're still working with the evacuations and how people are coming back in. People scrambling back into Key West and whatnot. And a lot of people, there we go, a little zoom in on the door. A lot of people didn't really talk about the Virgin Islands.
He's checking his focus.
Yeah, he knows.
Getting his tripod stable.
Photog expertise here.
But there should be a lot of press conferences today from the governors and all the rest, and how in all the different states recovery and the rest is going along.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be covering or popping those up for you later in the day.
Yeah, so if you guys are watching on Facebook, feel free to comment below on what you think. And if you're on YouTube, welcome again to some of our regulars. If you are subscribing to our channel, if not, you can press that red button right below this stream that says subscribe and be part of our stream every day. So we'll kind of wait this out. We're going to see this arrival as we usually do at the White House with President Trump, and then also go up to New York.
Unless Hillary comes up first.
If Hillary does come up first, we're going to go. We're going to make sure Fitz is talking about that today. That was my plan.
And the weather later. You got a weather map. That is cool.
We do, and we're going to have a few of those just to kind of check in with what's happening with weather inside our newsroom, guys. So what we're going to do is flash it over here, and Mike, you're getting ready to, what are we going to say?
Not a thing. Nothing. I'm supposed to listen and take pictures.
Yeah, in a second we're going to get the reporter that you're paired with today, Fitz, to come over here and chat this event. So Hillary on her book tour, her book called What Happened, and it's about this 2016 election.
She lost.
Did you hear about this?
I heard about that election. She lost.
And I think she'll have some explanation for it. And Fitz is going to talk about it.
No, there's no explanation.
He's walking by, but he's going to come back.
The explanation is she lost.
So he'll be back to chat with us about it. Just an interesting timing for this, I think, and also people have been talking about it in social media a lot.
Do all of them have to pay to be in that book signing?
I don't know.
And I wonder how long they've been waiting.
Looks like we're not. All right, so if you're on YouTube, we're not on Facebook right now. So
we're not on Facebook?
No,
Good.
not yet. All right, guys, so take a look at this. We'll be back with you in just a second. Hey guys, if you're just joining us on Fox 5 Live, welcome to our stream on Facebook and on YouTube. Hey Jamil. Oh, awesome. Okay, great. I do, and I'll get back to you in a second. Yeah. So you're looking at a live shot right now in Union Square in New York City, and actually we're gonna flash it over really quickly because President Trump is coming out at the White House. There he is.
Proud of all of you. Proud of all of you. You guys are great. You picture of the subpoena? Well, I thought that was the envelope of white. Can you do something about this? It's like a parking ticket. Some guy can take care of this for me. That was fun. Nice up here.
Quando manda qua, tu lo puoi prendere? Sì.
We'll see what choices the North Koreans make. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
One amendment.
All right, guys, we're
He's
going
the
to be
number
joined
one.
right now by Fitz, who's here to talk Hillary book signing. Hand over that mic. Mike.
He can mic himself.
So, okay, Fitz, this isn't your story today, right?
I don't know if I could follow whatever that was just now.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. All right, guys, so welcome. Thanks for watching here on Facebook and YouTube. We're efforting some issues on Facebook, so hope that you're able to join us. And if not, tomorrow we'll work it out. So, Fitz, this is live in Union Square right now. Hillary Clinton
It's a lot of books.
talking about her book, which is called What Happened? From about last year's election. What do you know?
This is the thing that Democrats probably could least use right now in a political sense. They were just getting to the point, where the focus was on Donald Trump. The differences within their own party were not getting as much of attention because of the fact that the president and his administration has kind of run into these challenges of some of their own making. And now, here comes Hillary Clinton again, right back into the spotlight, perfectly ready to relitigate not only the election, but also start maybe picking at some of these scabs that exist within the Democratic Party itself before they've had a chance to heal. A lot of the early excerpts from this book, some of them blame Bernie Sanders for creating the Trump campaign's ability to attack her, which is not exactly going over that well with the progressive liberal wing of the party, who didn't trust Hillary Clinton to begin with and had very serious questions about her own background. So now we're going to have a situation where Democrats are going to be forced to choose again. Are they going to go back to a year ago and refight these fights that they had, which never really healed, coming out of the convention in Philadelphia last year? I was there, and my one big takeaway from Philadelphia last year was that was a party that left their convention apart from each other. The Republicans who didn't like Donald Trump, who didn't want Donald Trump to be the nominee, they didn't go to the convention in Cleveland. They weren't there. So in the hall, for the most part, you had a united party that was there. Whoever was there was on board. There's only really one big instance of discord from that, and that was when Ted Cruz got booed the night he refused to endorse Trump during his speech. Ted Cruz later on did endorse Donald Trump. However, for the most part, Republicans were united. They never got there in the Democratic Party, and a large reason they got there was because the Bernie Sanders wing of the party and the Hillary Clinton wing of the party were at complete odds with each other. And so now here we are in, early September. Hillary Clinton's now going to come out with this book, What Happened? Her viewpoint of what happened.
You said you were able to read some of the early paragraphs?
Yeah. Well, you've seen some of the, she just did an interview with Jane Pauley the other day, where she kind of talks again about this, debate performance, where she talks about how, in her words, Trump was stalking her on the stage, and she should have turned around and say, back up, creep, and regrets not having done that.
Oh, really?
However, all of this, if the early excerpts from this wind up being what the main theme of this book probably shouldn't be called What Happened. It should probably be called It's Not My Fault. Because there hasn't been a lot of self-reflection. And, by the way, we're only, I know we say early, we're 9 months into this administration. And now all of a sudden we have a definitive version from Hillary Clinton's viewpoint on exactly what happened. Most people are still not exactly, past the initial phase of this administration. And now, this is probably the last thing Democrats need or want, and especially up on the Hill where they're now going to be asked about these things. They would rather be talking about Donald Trump. They'd rather be attacking Donald Trump. They'd rather be attacking Republicans and highlighting the fact that Republicans have not been able to repeal and replace Obamacare, highlighting the fact that Republicans are still stumbling out of the blocks to get to a tax cut or tax reform plan, talking about, the issues that came up in August after Charlottesville and how the White House and the president kind of, had to keep doing redos on their response. That's the thing that Democrats want to be talking about. They don't want to be talking about Hillary Clinton. In order for this party to move forward, it's a little hard to do that when she keeps coming back into the spotlight, grabbing all this attention, and then refocusing again on these divisions in the party and not, again, putting the party's interest first instead of her own.
So not looking good for the Democratic Party. What about for her own personal, political future?
Well, she says that she's never going to be a candidate again. And then in the same breath says she's not done with politics. Well, that raises some questions. Does that mean that she is now going to be endorsing a slate of candidates within primaries? So, the timing on this, this might be about a year early for this kind of...
For this to come out.
Yeah, and at least let them get past the midterm.
The midterm elections. Oh, it looks like... I don't know if she's speaking at this, but is she? We've kind of just seen this shot of the books and the rally.
So.
She must be.
Yeah.
She must be coming in soon. We've been waiting for this. It was supposed to come down at 10 a.m. this morning, but coming in now, so we'll see if she does come up.
So one of the backlashes about this as well, too, has been some of the pricing on this book tour. Apparently, they've been marketing this in a way that some people will be able to buy VIP access to Hillary Clinton. Some of these tickets going as high as $1,000, which is a lot of money. And if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter and you're somebody who accused the Clintons of being a little too much pay to play, well, this kind of respins that wheel again. About a year ago, I went to a book signing with Bruce Springsteen. That cost me $28. You know why it cost me $28? That's how much the book cost, and that was it. So, her critics have been saying this is a bit of a money grab, that this is bad for the Democratic Party, and here she comes.
There she is in her teal coat. All right, so there she is doing her thing.
Well, that was exciting.
Woo, she comes out. If you guys are just joining us, let us know what you think in the comments.
So I guess what we're doing here is she's just going to be signing books and...
Hey, Paul, what's up? So, yeah, I'm seeing. I haven't popped up, but I haven't seen that someone's calling in.
So great. watch the stripping.
So I guess now, what can we really expect from Hillary? From now, I guess.
Well, you're going to see a lot of her. You're going to see a lot of her over the next couple of days and weeks because she's going to do the talk show circuit. You know, she's going to do all these appearances. She's going to be on Stephen Colbert, which is going to be interesting because, you know, in addition to being a comic, he's probably one of the most biting political satirists, you know, out there right now. So it's not just going to be a giggle fest when she goes on Colbert. Colbert's probably going to have some very pointed things for her, and it's, you know, it's a live to tape interview too. So she's not going to be having the advantage of being able to go to an interview or something like that. So you have Paul Wagner there.
Yeah, we're getting Paul Wagner in a second to talk about this 40-year-old cold case, the Lyons sisters case. So we're going to jump in to him. We'll probably just dip out of this book signing and just switch topics a little bit. But good insight, Fitz. You're working on something else today with the FAA, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's bring that down. Hey, Paul, can you hear us?
Yeah, Molly and Fitz, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Hey, Paul, how are you? So Lloyd Welch pleads guilty today. What happened in the courtroom, Paul?
Well, it was really extraordinary, Fitz and Molly. 42 years after Sheila and Catherine Lyon vanished from what was then known as Wheaton Plaza in March of 1975, has finally come to a close. And Lloyd Welch, who looks nothing like the last mugshot that we saw of him, he looks gaunt and sickly. He pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree felony murder. The Lyons family was in the front row of the courtroom. John Lyon, his wife Mary, and his 2 sons and grandson were there, and they watched as he admitted his guilt in this case. One interesting twist in this that we learned today is that although Lloyd Welch admits to abducting the girls at Wheaton Plaza, he is absolutely adamant that he had nothing to do with sexually assaulting them or killing them. However, I spoke with John McCarthy, the Montgomery County State's Attorney, after the news conference today, and I said, he's making this claim, but you have evidence that he came to Taylor Mountain down here in Bedford County and arrived with 2 bags that were then thrown onto a bonfire that burned for days on the mountain, and that witnesses said they smelled of death. And so John McCarthy says that there is circumstantial evidence that can point to Lloyd Welch as having the girls' bodies in those bags that day in 1975. So it was a heart-wrenching scene today after Welch walked out of the courtroom. The Lyons family came and spoke with reporters. John Lyon made a very brief statement. He basically thanked law enforcement. He thanked the cold case squad. He said these were people that were almost members of our family. We have deep gratitude for them. He said they treated Catherine and Sheila like they were daughters or sisters. And then he said something to the effect of, it's been a long road, we're tired, we're going home.
Wow.
So,
You know, Paul, on the one hand, you look at this and you say it's a remarkable closure of a cold case that went on for 4 decades. On the other hand, you can look at this and wonder why did it take so long?
that's a very good question. And police, when you talk to them about cold cases, they often say having a new, fresh set of eyes on the case often can make a big difference. And in this case, that's what happened. In 2013, a new cold case detective took a look at the case, and he sees this name, Lloyd Welch, and he looks up his record, and he sees he's in prison in Delaware for assaulting a 10-year-old girl. And he looks at the composite sketch that was made at the time of a person who was seen staring at the girls in Wheaton Plaza, and he then compared that with his mugshot, and he said, geez, this guy looks identical to the guy who was seen looking at the girls. And so they went to see him, and just makes your head spin, but Welch started talking. And the police did ultimately 13 interviews with him. They did a final one on Friday, and he implicated himself. And then he pointed fingers. He pointed at his uncle, Richard Welch. He pointed at a cousin who said was involved. But ultimately today, the prosecutor down here in Bedford County said that he cannot call anyone else now a person of interest. So, in effect, it appears that the case is now closed.
Paul, you've been in probably thousands of courtrooms now with thousands of defendants. I'm curious from your own perspective, what was it like being in that courtroom today with Lloyd Welch and being there for the moment of the culmination of this case that has gone on since the 70s?
Well, when he walked into the courtroom, I made an audible wow. He looked so different, and he looked sickly and gaunt. He's 60 years old, but he looks 80. And I then turned over and I looked at the Lyons family, and John Lyon had his arm around his wife, Mary. And, 42 years have gone by, and finally this case comes to a close. I think I'd have more invested in this emotionally had I been around here at the time that it happened, but I was in high school when the girls vanished. I wasn't even living here at the time, and I didn't know the depth or the breadth of this case until I became a reporter, first at WTOP and then here at Fox 5. So, but it was momentous, Tom.
Yeah. My sister
really
was at
yeah.
WJLA in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
And back then she always said that this was, almost the way we talk about Relisha Rudd. That this was the case that for years and years and years was just a puzzlement to people. And I imagine from a law enforcement perspective, Paul, this has to be, nobody's happy clearly today, but there's just has to be a sense of accomplishment that comes out of pursuing this for as many years as they have and now finally having a resolution.
Oh, there's no doubt. Darren Frank, who's the commander of homicide for Montgomery County Police, he made some comments today. He was choked up. This case haunted the police department for so many years, and to finally close it, again, I'll use the word momentous, and it was deep satisfaction that they were finally able to give the Lyons family the answers that they wanted. And John McCarthy was also emotional, the state's attorney for Montgomery County. He knows John Lyon very well because John Lyon was a victim witness coordinator in the state's attorney's office for years. He just kept saying over and over again what a wonderful, wonderful family this is. One of the Lyons brothers was a Montgomery County police officer and retired from the police department. So they have deep ties to Montgomery County. And so for McCarthy and Darren Frank, it made a big difference that they were able to close this out.
And they're hard to believe. The Lyon sisters, had they lived, they would be in their late 50s now.
Is that right? Yeah. Mid to late.
Yeah, the girls were 10 and 12 at the time, and I live just around the corner from the Lyons now, and I go by their house all the time, and it's you just can't not think about it when you drive down Pliers Mill Road and pass their house, and you think about two little girls walking up to Wheaton Plaza and then never seeing them again. It's just heartbreaking.
Paul, one of the things we were able to do is kind of get a broader picture of what your day is like. So what's ahead for you right now?
Well, we left at 4 o'clock this morning, myself and photographer Jack Frame. We've been working the case on social media and getting the interviews that we needed, and we're sitting right outside the courthouse right now in downtown Bedford. We're going to put a story together and then, as we call it, put together Look Live, tape a story, and then we're going to hit the road. So we'll have a full story on the air tonight at 5 and 6.
A lot of people are looking forward to that, Paul, and we thank you for taking time out of what I know is always a busy day when something like this goes on, but probably none busier than today.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, happy to share, guys. Talk to you later.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and if you guys are interested in that story, you can see the link right below this post. We have our web story updated. We're going to keep it updated throughout the day on the web.
I've been following Paul's feed today, actually. He has, he just mentioned that he looked nothing like the pictures that we had
Yeah.
seen. Paul has those pictures up on his
Twitter.
Twitter feed right now, and he is right. I mean, he looks nothing like he did.
Really?
In
I
the
see if I can bring that
recent
up.
thing.
I'll have to check it out.
They
see if I can bring
say
that up.
he's, as Paul said, he does look every bit,
Because
if you told me he was an 80-year-old man, I would believe you, because he did
really,
not look like.
I'm gonna find these. So what happens to? I meant to ask him that. What happens to him from now? Like he pleaded guilty, and now
facing a life sentence in prison now.
Right here.
Well, that's
Oh, wait.
That's the last picture we saw. But if you look at the picture on the left,
Oh,
on the
yeah.
left in the orange jumpsuit,
All right, let's.
that is
bring
what
it
he
up.
looks like now. And what Paul just said
It's small,
is
but
correct. I mean, he looks nothing like the last image we've seen of him. And there he is in court this
Small.
morning.
all right, we'll try to bring this here.
Yeah, there you go.
Looks like
That's
this.
him in the orange jumpsuit.
All right, that's what he looks
Yeah.
like today
That's
in
what Paul's
court.
talking about. If you
Flip
had
it.
seen any previous images of him,
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, at the time of the incident.
no.
Oh,
no,
later,
this is
just
one
previous.
of the more recent. This is one of the more recent mug shots they had of him, but this was from, a number of years ago. Paul did have an image of, probably a more dated picture of him back at the time of the Lyons sisters' disappearance, and you could just see how the years have remarkably changed his appearance now. But this has been a story, as Paul said, that has dominated this area for 4 decades. I'm a 50-year-old man.
Oh my gosh.
I was 8 years old when this happened. My sister was working at
JLA.
Channel 7 here in town on this local assignment desk. Back then, it was just dominating everybody's thoughts, questions. It was just a mystery that refused to die in this area. And then, as you heard Paul say, back in 2013, when this cold case squad came in, they were able to make use of new forensic ability. They conducted searches over wide stretches of really rural land in southwestern Virginia. They searched and they searched and they searched. Ultimately, they never did find
The bodies.
the Lyons sisters, and perhaps they never will. But
Because what was
at least for now, this family can at least, in whatever time they have left, know that the man who was accused of this crime has pled guilty today.
Yeah.
And that's there's value in that for them. It doesn't bring the Lyons sisters back. It doesn't change what happened 42 years ago. But this is a momentous day for that family and the people who have wondered about the Lyons sisters all these years about what happened to them.
No, it was 1975, right? Is that what we're saying? So, was there an implication though that these bodies were possibly burned when he was saying that there was that smell of
as
bodies?
you said, and John McCarthy, the state's attorney for Montgomery County, has said that they have evidence to indicate that is what ultimately became of them. But Paul put it, I think, best when he said, the goal here today was to get him to plead guilty to this charge, and that it was what he has done. The fact that it's taken this long is really a testament to the police work that never gave up. There are probably people who have come and gone over the years who have worked on this case, and to finally get now to 2017 and we have a resolution is
amazing.
Is an accomplishment.
And we have that press conference actually, guys, on video that we're going to play out for you later on in the show. But we'll wrap it up, I think, here with Fitz. And
Okay.
You do your story today. What are you working on today?
We're going to be doing a couple of things. There's taking another look at Hillary's.
Oh yeah, here we go. Still going on, guys. This book signing in New York. Still happening. A lot of books. Those are the books in the blue? Yeah.
Well, I've been to these things, and I'll tell you, a lot of these, I guess she's signing some of them, perhaps, while the cameras are there. But oftentimes when you go to a book signing, whoever the author is, they will have signed what's called a number of book plates, which are the first page that you see in it. So the publisher will bring them a stack of basically papers, and they will sign those. Those plates are then inserted into the book. It looks here, she's actually signing this, you can see.
Yeah, there you go.
I went to one with Laura Bush one time, and they had a very interesting system that Laura Bush would sign a book. The book would be handed to somebody backstage, and then you would wind up getting a book, but it wasn't actually the one that you had handed to Laura Bush.
So special.
Everybody kind of does this differently. You know, when I went to Bruce Springsteen's thing last year, basically it had already been set up that Bruce had signed all the books.
Oh, really?
All the books were already signed. So, well, you were there to get a picture with Bruce.
Wow.
Which
Did
was
you
fun.
do it? You
oh,
did it.
You better
Do
believe
you
I
have
did
it on your desk? I
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
But she
Fave.
looks like she's actually signing
Yeah.
other books as well, too.
Pretty bold cover there, blue
So,
and white, bold writing.
You know,
Font.
there's not a lot of interaction in these things. There's a hi, how are you, maybe if you're lucky, and then somebody kind of scoots you off to the side.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how many people involved in like her campaign and other people that we know that were involved with her are there supporting this.
Well, a lot of people who were involved in this campaign are now moved on to other things. You know, a lot of them have taken consulting jobs. A lot of them are right back in the fray. You know, jumping onto other campaigns. You know, it's not a normal thing for people who work in campaigns to automatically wind up in government. Campaign people and government people tend to sometimes be different animals. If you're a campaign person, you tend to go from campaign to campaign.
Yeah, addicted.
And you know, you look at Steve Bannon's interview, on Sunday night at 60 Minutes. That might have been a factor in his short tenure at the White House.
Yeah.
He is a fighter. He is a street fighter. He had never been on a political campaign before he was on the Trump campaign, but campaign people and governing people sometimes are not always good fits for each other.
And speaking of that, I mean, this is a little bit changing gears, but the John McCain's interview, Jake Tapper.
Yeah.
Super emotional.
Well, you know, what you need to know about that is also the history between those two. Tapper and McCain go back, a long time. You know, I told you the story the other day about how McCain called me a communist back in 2000.
Yeah, that's a
when
funny
we were
story.
when we were covering his presidential campaign.
Yeah.
Well, Jake Tapper was one of the reporters back then that
Yeah.
was on the bus. You know, there was a kind of a cadre of reporters that followed him around, and Tapper was one of them. There were a lot of people who have now gone on to very prominent, jobs. Whether they're correspondents or whether they're hosting like John Dickerson. Face the Nation now on CBS. Dickerson was one of the McCain reporters. So
they had a closeness. is what you're
Well,
saying.
when you spend time on a bus with somebody,
Yeah.
you get to kind of know them. Or if you follow them around the country, you kind of get to know them a little bit.
Jake Tapper was on the Straight Talk Express, or that
one of the reporters
Yeah.
who follow that race, and that was a fascinating race because back in 2000, tame by today's standards, but there was a time when Ronald Reagan, had what was called the 11th Commandment, and the 11th Commandment was a Republican shall not speak ill of another Republican, which seems amazing if you think what goes on these days. And 17 years ago, back in 2000, for John McCain and George W. Bush to go at it as hard as they did, and they did. People forget. John McCain and George W. Bush went at it in 2000. Ultimately, George W. Bush won, and John McCain quickly coalesced his support behind George W. Bush. I was in Philadelphia in 2000 when they had an event on the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum. Believe it or not, which was sponsored by a Latino voting organization, which was throwing its support behind Bush. So, 17 years is a long time, and when I look back on that race and I see where we are in our politics right now, there have been like tectonic plate shifts in our politics, especially with the Republican Party. Back then, George W. Bush was trying to move the Republican Party towards a more inclusive immigration stance because he saw what was going on in Texas, and he saw that this was the next wave of voters and immigrants that were coming into the country. And, from a religious standpoint as well, Bush thought that a lot of the Latino voter, religious issues lined up with where the Republican Party were. That's not the case now. There's been a split now, and the Democrats have kind of tried to move in and fill that gap. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about at 6:30 tonight, about how outside money is now flowing into the state of Virginia to try to shift not only big statewide races like what's going on in the Senate race, but also the House and the Senate race in the Virginia General Assembly. So we're going to be talking about that a little later on too. We're also going to be talking about the fact that Governor Larry Hogan now directing the Attorney General in Maryland to file suit against the Federal Aviation Administration because of this next-gen computer system, which basically was designed to lower airplane noise. But what it did was it sent these planes out over different routes and now has caused almost non-stop noise for the people who have been unfortunate enough to live under these new flight paths. Hogan has tried for some time now to get the FAA to revisit this. They insist that the people who are being affected now are a smaller number of people, so they have held tight to this next-gen system. Apparently the governor has decided he's exhausted all of his options. He's now decided to file suit against the FAA. I would be surprised if Virginia at some point does not file suit on this, because a lot of people we know we've talked to in Fairfax County, Belhaven areas of Alexandria, they've also been affected by this adversely. So this is a a bi-river issue right now for a lot of people who live not only around Reagan National Airport, but also up around BWI, Timonian, Glen Burnie areas like that.
Wow, so that's what you're looking at today. Great.
We got a lot to get to.
That's Tom Fitzgerald, guys. You can see his handle right below on the screen, so he's going to go do that.
Oh, is that my handle?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, look at that.
I got you up.
Well, see, I capitalized.
I know. I did it
my
lowercase
Foxtrot.
to make it just, a little different.
Yeah, it's dainty.
It's dainty. So you'll see Tom on a bit. He'll be in and out.
Right.
Thanks, Tom.
We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Cool.
Sliding out.
Sliding out. Thanks. All right, guys. So we're gonna go switch it up. If you're watching on Facebook, thanks for joining us. I know we're having a slight issue on there, but if you're on YouTube, even better. Welcome. Hey, Stig. Nice to see some of the regulars on. We're going to go over because we're getting a stream in from C-SPAN. So let's jump in there before we check in with the weather.
You were asking about sort of illicit transactions. In effect, nearly every export coming out of North Korea today, as of last night, nearly every export is now illicit. Textiles are now illicit. You cannot trade in North Korean textiles. You cannot trade in basic minerals anymore. Under the previous administration, talking about Bureau 39, one of the things they would do is sell these huge overpriced bronze statues, and then the weapons were the kicker on the side, and sort of as a little sweetener for paying 6 times the going rate for a bronze statue. So that organization, the Mansudae Fine Art Studio, was sanctioned, and under our administration, we started rooting out the rest of that particular arts and monuments revenue generating schema. North Korean labor is another category that they're getting significant money from, and with the results last night, there's now not a freeze or cap on North Korean laborers. There's a requirement to wind it down. I'm not a big fan of wind downs because it's real hard to verify that, but that is nevertheless a big step forward, and we intend to enforce that as well. I have reiterated on multiple occasions with counterparts in the Gulf and elsewhere that we need to see the North Koreans gone. The Department of State has been very active on this front, and we are seeing a drying up of revenue associated with the slave labor that the North Koreans employ.
So actually, and then to my last question, North Korea proliferating weapons to Iran and Syria.
All right, guys, we're supposed to be getting in this playback of President Trump in the White House with the Malaysian Prime Minister, but because it's not playing back yet, let's switch it over. We were talking about the Lyons sisters case, the cold case from 1975 that has just been solved. There's actually a press conference just moments ago this morning that we're going to play out for you, sort of detailing what went on, everything that Paul Wagner told us earlier. So let's check that out.
Well, it's been a long road, and our family here, we want to express sincere gratitude to so many people. I'm not going to name names, it would take all day. I know I'd forget somebody. But specifically the FBI, SAT teams, technical personnel, Sheriff's Department of Bedford County, Virginia State Police, Montgomery County State's Attorney's Office, the Bedford County Commonwealth Attorney's Office and former Commonwealth Attorney, and the victim assistant who's been working with us for all this time. Our thanks to the people involved all the years to help push this case to where it is today. And I'm sure there are many others that we don't even know about, but it does not diminish our gratitude. Finally, a special place in our lives for the Montgomery County Police Department Cold Case Unit. There are representatives of them here today. The last 2 or 3 years or so, they have treated Sheila and Kate as if they were their own sisters or daughters. It's a tremendous display of performance, professional performance, but even more beautiful emotional investment in the case and in our family. So on behalf of our family, this is Mary, this is Joe, that's Jay, the girls' sisters. This is Matt, our grandson, who's with us today as well. And we just want to say simply, thank you. And it's been a long time. And we're tired. And we just want to go home. Thank you all for being here.
A weekly basis, and so we're very proud of our stock market, what's happened since I became president, so I congratulate you on those investments. But I just want to say it's an honor to have you here. It's an honor to have your delegation with us. I believe you'll be at the United Nations next week, and a lot of folks are going to be at the United Nations next week. It should be an exciting week, and we look very much forward to that. But I want to thank you very much for all of the investment you've made in the United States. Also, the Prime Minister has a major role in not allowing ISIS, or as you say, Daesh, and others to exist. And he's been very, very strong on terrorism in Malaysia and a great supporter from that standpoint. So that's a very important thing to the United States. Does not do business with North Korea any longer. And we find that to be very important. We had a vote yesterday on sanctions. We think it's just another very small step, not a big deal. Rex and I were just discussing, not big. I don't know if it has any impact, but certainly it was nice to get a 15-0 vote. But those sanctions are nothing compared to what ultimately will have to happen. So thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate it. Mr. Prime Minister, it's a great honor to have you in the United States and in the White House. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Would you like to say something?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your invitation for me and members of my delegation to meet with you at the White House. I want to say that we come here with a strong value proposition to put on the table. Number one, we want to help you in terms of strengthening the U.S. economy. I come with 3 specific proposals. Number one, we intend to increase the number of Boeing planes to be purchased by MAS. We are committed to 25 planes of the 737 MAX 10 plus 8 787 Dreamliners. And there is a strong probability, not possibility, probability that we will add 25 more 737 MAX 10 in the near future. So within 5 years, the deal will be worth beyond $10 billion. That's one. We will also try to persuade AirAsia to purchase GE engines.
Great.
Secondly, we have Employee Provident Fund, which is a major pension fund in Malaysia. They've got quite a big sum of capital to be exported. They have invested close to $7 billion in terms of equity in the United States, and they intend to invest $3 to $4 additional billion to support your infrastructure redevelopment in the United States.
Right.
And thirdly, our sovereign fund, Khazanah, they have an office in Silicon Valley. They have invested about $400 million in terms of high-tech companies, and they intend to increase that investment as well. Secondly, the other goal of your administration, Mr. President, which is to make United States safe, and with that, the world safe. We are committed to fight Daesh, IS, Al-Qaeda, Abu Sayyaf, you name it. They are the enemy of the United States. They are also the enemy of Malaysia. And we will do our part to make sure that our part of the world is safe. We will also contribute in terms of the ideological warfare, because you need to win the hearts and minds. And the key to it is to support moderate and progressive Muslim regimes and governments around the world, because that is the true face of Islam. That's the authentic face of Islam. The more you align with progressive and moderate regimes, the better it would be in terms of winning the hearts and minds of the Muslim world.
Right.
So, Mr. President, thank you once again. United States has always been our partner for a long, long time. And this year is our 60th anniversary of our relationship. And I hope that today's meeting will make it even stronger in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you have any response to Steve Bannon's interview on 60 Minutes?
Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, we're back in the newsroom, guys, with Mike Fischoff. He didn't want to be here, but he's here. Welcome to the show. What are you working on today?
I got something with Hogan at Reagan
Oh yeah,
National
you are with
Airport.
Fitz. So Fitz,
Fitz
Tom
say what
Fitz.
we were
Yep,
working
we were
on?
just talking about it.
I was loading gear.
We're talking about the FAA. There he is. He's back. He got me some cake.
I was
We're
coming to talk to
chilling.
you. She said, sit down, and then she flipped on the mic again.
So I flipped on the mic.
What are we doing?
Mike is going out with Fitz,
It's Al
and
Gore's amazing internet.
we're going to switch it back to the Lyons sister story, because we had that press conference that is just such big news today. It's highly emotional, and I want to make sure we play that out. So thanks for watching on YouTube. This is Mike Fischoff. He'll join us again.
Hi, guys.
And we're going to play back. We heard from the Lyons family themselves, an emotional...
That is a long time story for anybody that's been in this area, playing out and that, and it's nice finally to see a conviction. I can't tell you how many times that we thought we found the bodies, that we would go
because you've been here.
Yeah, for 20 years.
So there would be little tips here and there.
This story.
There would be little tips about...
They would think, yeah, every once in a while, and say we go out on a search.
Wow. And ultimately...
But even as a child, I remember when it happened and missing and how sad it was. It's just sad. There's just a lot of evil in the world, and we're central in covering it all the time.
Definitely. So, all right. So as this other tape plays out, looks like there's a quick shot of Rex Tillerson and the president as they play back this tape from inside the White House, and the vice president as well. Yep, we saw them a lot yesterday. We'll check in here and just see what they have to say, and then we'll go back to that press conference.
Allowing ISIS, or as you say, Daesh, and others to exist. And he's been very, very strong on terrorism in Malaysia and a great supporter from that standpoint. So that's a very important thing to the United States. Does not do business with North Korea any longer. And we find that to be very important. We had a vote yesterday on sanctions. We think it's just another very small step, not a big deal. Rex and I were just discussing, not big, I don't know if it has any impact, but certainly it was nice to get a 15-0 vote, but those sanctions are nothing compared to what ultimately will have to happen. So thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate it. Mr. Prime Minister, it's a great honor to have you in the United States and in the White House. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Would you like to say something?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your invitation for me and members of my delegation to meet with you at the White House. I want to say that we come here with a strong value proposition to put on the table. Number one, we want to help you in terms of strengthening the U.S. economy. I come with 3 specific proposals. Number one, we intend to increase the number of Boeing planes to be purchased by MAS. We are committed to 25 planes of the 737 MAX 10, plus 8 787 Dreamliners. And there is a strong probability, not possibility, probability that we will add 25 more 737 MAX 10 in the near future. So within 5 years, the deal will be worth beyond $10 billion. That's one. We will also try to persuade AirAsia to purchase GE engines.
Correct.
Secondly, we have Employee Provident Fund, which is a major pension fund in Malaysia. They've got quite a big sum of capital to be exported. They have invested close to $7 billion in terms of equity in the United States, and they intend to invest $3 to $4 additional billion to support your infrastructure redevelopment in the United States.
Right.
And thirdly, our sovereign fund, Khazanah, they have an office in Silicon Valley. They have invested about $400 million in terms of high-tech companies, and they intend to increase that investment as well. Secondly, the other goal of your administration, Mr. President, which is to make United States safe, and with that, the world safe. We are committed to fight Daesh, IS, Al-Qaeda, Abu Sayyaf, you name it. They are the enemy of the United States. They are also the enemy of Malaysia. And we will do our part to make sure that our part of the world is safe. We will also contribute in terms of the ideological warfare, because you need to win the hearts and minds. And the key to it is to support moderate and progressive Muslim regimes and governments around the world, because that is the true face of Islam. That is the authentic face of Islam. The more you align with progressive and moderate regimes, the better it would be in terms of winning the hearts and minds of the Muslim world.
Right.
So, Mr. President, thank you once again. United States has always been our partner for a long, long time. And this year is our 60th anniversary of our relationship, and I hope that today's meeting will make it even stronger in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you have any response to Steve Bannon's interview on 60 Minutes?
Thank you, guys. Good, guys. taking in refugees from Burma.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, President. Thank you.
My name is Wes Nance. I'm the Commonwealth's attorney here in Bedford County. I'll have some short prepared statements, and I'll be turning things over to John McCarthy, the state's attorney from Montgomery County, Maryland, and also Captain Darren Frank from the Montgomery County Police Department. It's been my deep privilege to be the lead prosecutor on this day of justice. But we wouldn't be here today without the amazing efforts of so many individuals and so many agencies. As Mr. Lyons said, there's almost too many to name. I will highlight some, but we have also prepared a written press release that will name more agencies and the individuals associated with those said agencies. My great appreciation begins with the Montgomery County Police Department and their cold case unit. These are the individuals who recognized Lloyd Welch Jr. as a person of interest in this case. Then they coordinated his interviews and the underlying admissions to form the backbone of the investigation and ultimately the successful prosecution. Those interviews led to a coordinated effort with Bedford County Sheriff's Office, the Virginia State Police, the FBI, Division of Forensic Science here in Virginia and in Montgomery County Police Department, Prince William's Law Enforcement Agency, and their Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. And certainly not least the Montgomery County State Attorney's Office, led by Mr. McCarthy, who assisted throughout this entire process, and we certainly appreciate their support. I would like to also thank my predecessor, the Honorable Randy Krantz, for the courage to have this 6-attorney office spearhead the prosecution of this over 40-year-old bodiless cold case investigation. It's perhaps one of the oldest bodiless prosecutions this nation has ever seen, and his leadership and mentorship cannot be minimized. I also have to thank my entire office because with a case of this age, and this size, and with an office of the size of ours, every person is affected. Mr. Tim Griffin was the second chair on this case and was very instrumental in the pre-trial motions that allowed us the opportunity to ask for death penalty had this case gone to trial. As we prepared for trial, I brought in Ms. Stephanie Ayers, who unfortunately is in training this week, but she would have spearheaded the sentencing phase of this case. My legal assistant, Ms. Stephanie Wooten, helped to coordinate the discovery of the volumes of discovery that Mr. Anderson spoke about in the courtroom. Then obviously Ms. Krista Calhoun, our victim witness advocate, who was always there for the Lyon family whenever they had a question or a need arose. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, I want to thank the Lyon family themselves. It's been an honor to work for them in this most honorable of cases and causes. I greatly appreciate their support through this very grueling process. This is a good day for the cause of justice. It will not give the family closure, nor all the answers that they deserve. With that being said, it's been my true honor to work with them and the numerous law enforcement agencies that worked this case over the last several years. It's been a deep, deep privilege to be able to stand at counsel table and have Lloyd Lee Welch Jr. come into the courtroom, and utter the words guilty. Thank you again for being here, and with that, I'll turn things over to Mr. John McCarthy. Afterwards, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think it's an emotional day for everybody from Montgomery County. This was a day back in March of 1975 that changed everything for how we lived. I want to thank Wes Nance. I will tell you, Wes, you could not have had a better partner and someone who worked more professionally with us as we coordinated a resolution towards today and what happened in court. And I want to thank him very much for all of the kindness this is extended to the people to Montgomery County. Captain Darren Frank, his cold case unit. Detective Davis, you heard his name mentioned. There were multiple interviews of Lloyd Welch over several year period of time, 13 interviews. Mr. Detective Davis conducted almost all of those interviews. They were essential. I think all of those officers deserve an enormous amount of credit. I'd also like to join Wes in thanking Randy Krantz. Let me tell you, this is a small community that took on an enormous burden, an enormous cost and time to help us bring some justice in the name of Catherine and Sheila, and we are forever grateful to the people of Bedford County for what they've done. Thank you, Randy Krantz. Thank you, Judge Krantz, for the work that you did on this case to inspire the people down here to do what was necessary to bring justice for this family. I will tell you, I don't know that I've ever seen investigators, a cold case unit, officers from Montgomery County, or the officers down here that took and invested their time in making sure that no stone went unturned in this investigation. Thank you for your never say die attitude towards going forward in this case. My thoughts and prayers go to the Lyons family. These are fabulous people. I watched how quietly you listened as John stood up here and had the courage to talk, finally after 42 years, about the loss of his 2 children. I met John many years ago. John is a guy who serves my community. He was a victim witness coordinator, helped many, many families in many cases that I prosecuted, rapes, robberies, murders. John stood with me and helped other families while the murders of his daughters went unsolved in my county. That's how I know John Lyon. His son, Jay, was a Montgomery County retired police officer, gave back to the community. This is a spectacular family and part of the fabric of Montgomery County. We've lived with this for decades. And again, that day in March was the day we lost our innocence. We began to rear our children differently. We began to think differently about what we could do. I guess there's no way to turn that clock back, but the entire region was affected by this case. Look, this has been a long road. The abduction of these girls began in my county. Unfortunately for Sheila and Catherine, they were very, very quickly taken from Montgomery County, and the crimes that the police were entered into today did not take place in Montgomery County. They were taken into Prince George's County. They were taken down into Virginia. Many things happened here that were unspeakable crimes against these children, and occurred in multiple jurisdictions beyond borders of Montgomery County, beyond where we had jurisdiction. I just want the people of Montgomery County to know that, again, we are thankful to Wes and the people of Bedford County. The resolution that we reached here today was after consultation on a repeated basis with John and Mary Lyon. I will tell you, we're here today because John and the family, they needed this resolution. They needed this to end. They need this to be over and to get on with their lives. I will tell you, it's been very, very hard for them these last several years. As more details have come out about what happened, this has not been an easy 2 years for this family. But again, we are forever grateful for their courage. I was honored to be in the same room with John Lyon today, and Mary Lyon, and their sons, and their grandson. And again, thank you to all of you that have come here. And again, final, Wes, thank you very much.
Good morning. Captain Darren Frank. I'm the director of the Major Crimes Division for the Montgomery County Department of Police. And I have the honor of working with the men and women of our cold case section. On March 25th, 1975, Montgomery County Police began investigating the disappearance of Catherine and Sheila Lyon. In the 42 years, 5 months, and 18 days since then, our department has never stopped searching for them. Today, a despicable human being, Lloyd Welch, answered for his part in the crimes against Catherine and Sheila, the Lyon family, and our community. The operation to hold him accountable was appropriately called Worthy Cause. We are thankful for the law enforcement professionals that joined us in this worthy cause. We are indebted to the Bedford County Sheriffs and Sheriff Brown, the Montgomery County State's Attorney, the Prince William County Police and Commonwealth Attorney, the FBI, the Honorable Randy Krantz, and Wes Nance and his team. 3 years ago today, we dropped in on your community, and you stood with us. My cold case section has worked tirelessly for the last 4 years to make today's proceedings possible. Chris, Mark, Dave, Katie, Frank, and Brian are very special investigators, and I thank them for their sacrifice. There is not a thing that my team can do to bring peace to the Lyon family. That is theirs to find. I just want you to know that we worked hard and we wish we could do more. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that's all the prepared statements that we have. Unfortunately, I saw some of the real heroes of this case avoid the limelight and sneak out. That's the cold case investigators themselves who, without them, this day just would not have taken place. And I would urge you that perhaps try to find them at some point, because those are the heroes that need to be spoken to get quotes from, and to understand how we got to this day. Now, with that being said, although I do need to get back to the family, I could take a few short questions if there are.
Mr. Anderson seemed to suggest that while Lloyd Welch had admitted to being involved, that he did not kill or abuse these two beautiful young girls. Is that your understanding?
Well, that's certainly his statement, and that was consistent with his statements throughout this process. You know, how much you believe him, it really cut to the heart of this case. Certainly his involvement under the legal theories that we spoke about in court today, felony murder or concert of action, holds him responsible for their deaths, even though he did not admit to participating. His credibility is open for questioning, however, as the individuals that he named as his co-conspirators changed over time. What did not change was his involvement, and at the end of the day, his involvement is what these investigators were able to corroborate at the beginning, in the middle, and the end.
Did somebody else escape justice in this abduction and murder?
I think that's an open-ended question. If you believe Lloyd Welch, then yes, there are others to be held accountable. I do know that there was tireless efforts through the multi-jurisdictional grand jury here, numerous search warrants, witness interviews, person of interest interviews that did not lead to the point of probable cause like we had on Lloyd Welch. I think because of the open nature of his statements and the inconsistency of his statements, that leads to some conjecture, and there's probably even differences of opinion within the prosecution and investigation team itself. What I can tell you is that in my heart of hearts, I know we've put one of the main perpetrators away for all intents and purposes the rest of his life.
In the last news conference, your agency, you weren't here yet, named Richard Welch very publicly as a person of interest in this case. He's never been charged. What is his status?
I think different members of the team may have different opinions of that. I would tell you that with my association with the case and with the intensive investigations that have taken place, I'm no longer comfortable calling any other individual a person of interest. Lloyd Welch has identified a number of different individuals, and that cast of characters changed over time. And so, although this investigation certainly could have a subsequent phase, I'm not prepared personally to call anyone else a person of interest at this time.
Do you think there will be additional prosecution connected to this case, or is this done?
It's very...
What have we done today?
We've closed the chapter on Lloyd Welch. Now, one thing that was not mentioned as part of this plea agreement, which is very important, is that on Thursday, as part of this plea agreement, he gave a final proffer to law enforcement to see whether there was anything additional that he was willing to or able to provide to the investigators. Now, out of discretion for the family and also discretion for the investigation itself, I'm not going to go into details of that, but I can tell you that once again, he limited his role and blamed others, and the others that he blamed changed somewhat. So there are a lot of inconsistencies throughout Mr. Welch's statements. It's made it very difficult to proceed against any others that may have been associated with this crime.
Patricia Ann Welch claims that her father, Richard Welch, actually did testify in front of the special grand jury, and she claims she testified 3 times. Is that accurate?
Well, we did have a number of witnesses here, and I apologize.
Richard Welch would be...
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely familiar with them. I'm unsure how much I can comment about grand jury proceedings. I do know that the individuals called to testify before those proceedings were often filmed here in court. A number of people from Maryland, a number of members of the Welch family did testify as part of that. And I'm not trying to avoid the question. I just know that there are some secrecy limitations on multi-grand jurisdictional meetings, and so I'm just not going to completely qualify your question. I apologize.
Was it necessary for you to take the death penalty off the table in order to get him to plead guilty? Was that a linchpin of this agreement?
Well, yes, I think it was. And to speak to that, oh, sure, absolutely. To speak to that, that was, both a decision made because of the status of the law, but also the wishes of the family. In 1975, with the evidence that we had, if you take Lloyd Welch at his word, he was still eligible for the death penalty. Shortly after that, however, the law changed, and the Commonwealth had to prove the immediate perpetrator, or what we call the trigger man. We had absolutely no direct evidence of that. So the discussions that I had with the Lyons family was, we are willing to ask for the death penalty, we were prepared to ask for the death penalty, but if a jury recommended it and the judge upheld it, we were likely looking at years of appeals of both a factual and legal nature. And I think they wanted this chapter of this prosecution closed. And so in consultation with them and the other agencies involved, we did this term of years to resolve it today.
Is 48 years concurrent enough?
I think for all intents and purposes, it's a life sentence. Is a life sentence enough for the taking of 2 innocent lives? I don't know if I'm the proper person to answer. I don't know if any person's the proper person to answer. I do know that based upon the evidence that was presented, the excellent investigation that took place, justice occurred today.
You anticipate he'll never see the light of day. He'll never get out.
Yeah, and yes, ma'am, that is my anticipation. Theoretically, he will be eligible parole. That's one of the issues with the 1975 law that we're still dealing with. That was prior to truth in sentencing here in Virginia in 1995.
When would he be eligible for parole?
In our consultation with the State Attorney General's office and the parole board, it would be in his early to mid-80s. I would also explain to you, though, that the defense counsel took the step of, just as we consulted those 2 agencies, they looked back at the records of parole eligibility in the past. And an individual with these types of crimes and what will soon be 5 different hands-on victims, the likelihood of a parole board granting him any type of parole is very slim, if non-existent.
Just to be clear, sir, he is in Delaware serving until what year before he begins serving time in Virginia?
Shortly after the Prince William jurisdiction charges are resolved, he will be returned to Delaware, and he will be there until approximately 2026.
And then the 48-year sentence would begin.
Except for the time that he has already served up until his plea today. He does get credit for that towards that 48-year sentence. About 2 years.
That's just one 48-year sentence, chronologically through the sentence and where he will be, what he's going to be serving. It's very confusing in there when the judge, you corrected the judge a bit or clarified something. Can you just go through it chronologically?
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me. Mr. Welch was convicted of the 2 charges of murder today and received 48 years on both. Those are run concurrent or at the same time. So he received a 48-year prison sentence here in Bedford County. It is anticipated, and he has signed a plea agreement, that later this year he will go to Prince William, Virginia, and enter guilty pleas on 2 aggravated sexual batteries in which he will receive 12 years to serve there. That will run concurrent with the 48 years that we have here. The net effect is he will have 48 years to serve here in the state or the Commonwealth of Virginia. Because of the way that international inmate or interstate inmate law is, we basically have him on loan from Delaware. So once Prince William has imposed sentence, it could be within a couple of months, he will be transported back to Delaware to start his time there. When he does, we will toll the Virginia time. He will not get double credit in both Delaware and Virginia. He will be incarcerated in Delaware until sometime in 2026, at which time he will return to begin anew his sentence here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
In your investigations, have you developed any evidence or suspicion that Lloyd Welch might be connected to any other unsolved cases anywhere?
Well, I think that was always a suspicion. And what you saw probably in the court's filings is that we had a number of prior bad act witnesses who came forward during the course of this investigation who believed that they had been victimized by Lloyd Welch. Had this case gone to trial, we would have presented those witnesses, most of which had not gone prosecuted at the time. But these women, and these very brave women, came forward during the course of the investigation. So he was absolutely tied to those potential victims, and we were prepared to present them at trial had this presented with a jury trial.
Can you shed some light on Prince William County cases that were resolved today? Were these children, adults?
I can say that the indictments both show that they were underage at the time of that charge. I'm in somewhat of an ethical quandary because he still has a presumption of innocence. He has a written plea agreement which has been filed with the court today, but he's not yet entered those pleas. So I would direct you to those indictments that will give you the nature of those charges. They are historical sex offenses against children under the age of 18. Anything further, I will defer to Prince William about that. I apologize.
Mr. Nance, can you speak at all to this suggestion, mitigating factors that Mr. Henderson brought up in terms of intellectual disability? As I understand it, he said his father murdered his mother, and he was abused in foster care. Are all those things accurate as you understand it?
They are things that I anticipated to be presented by the defense had we gone to trial. They are parts of the mitigation that comes forward with any capital case. They are, in fact, provided an expert that helps try to identify those mitigating factors in case they have to try to zealously argue for their client's life. I think Mr. Anderson was simply being a zealous advocate for his client this morning.
Do you think anyone else will face charges in the death of the Lyons sisters?
Much too early to say. I do know that these investigators are very satisfied with the day, and I'm appreciative of that, but I also know that they want to seek justice for anyone else who may have been involved.
So the door is open for future projects.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, if that's all, I certainly may be available later, but I've kept the Lyons family waiting way too long. I certainly appreciate everyone's being present today, and once again, thank all the brave men and women who were behind this investigation. Very proud to work with them. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Say that again?
Yeah, spell your first and last name, please.
Tony Anderson. TonyAnderson. BGA.
Whenever you folks are ready. We're ready. We're ready.
Well, thank you, all of you, for being here today. This, as we said on the record, brings to the close a long and grueling case. It's the first time I've been involved with the case, and I think all of my colleagues as well, that spans 42 years. And it's important to have finality in our judicial system, and that was achieved today with respect to the Bedford County charges. We believe that also will be the same in Prince William County, as that plea agreement reached there was attached as an exhibit to our plea agreement that was entered today. And we are confident that the right result was reached here today on many levels for all the parties and all sides included. So with that, we will answer any questions that we can.
Mr. Welch had a chance to apologize to the Lyons family today, so it's not to say anything. Why was that, and does he have any remorse for his role?
I think Mr. Welch, it's been our experience, has a lot of remorse about the circumstances and the role that he played in this proceeding. He made a decision that he asked that I speak for him and convey his position to the family. I hope that we did that adequately. Probably not if you thought that he didn't express that, but he is very remorseful and had intended and wanted to make sure that the Lyon family understands that his role, what his role was, and that he's sorry for that.
Why didn't he express that remorse today?
Say that again.
Why did he not express that remorse today, do you know?
Well, you know, I can only guess that he thought I'd expressed it for him well enough. You've got to remember that Lloyd, although he's 60 years old today and was 18-year-old at the time of the offense, he's a little nervous speaking under those circumstances, and but not so much the nerves as that I really feel, and you guys can chime in if you like, but I really think he thought we had expressed that as a team on his behalf.
So you continue to maintain that he did not murder or defile?
That's absolutely correct. Yes, and the evidence that we know of, and I made reference to that today. There's been over 285,000 electronic files, over 250 hours of video evidence, most of which, or many of which, are his statements to law enforcement. And in every statement, the one consistent thread is his role has been in the abduction of the Lyons sisters, and never
All right, if you guys are just joining us on Fox 5 Live, thanks for watching on Facebook and YouTube. We have this video in. Obviously, we've been following this case, the Lyons sisters case closed today after 4 decades of state's attorney and detectives working on this case. So really a monumental moment there. But this video is actually coming in 2 parts. So I'm going to set up this second shot for you, especially some of you guys who are commenting and enjoying watching this. We're hearing from a lot of people, including the Lyons family themselves. They spoke at the beginning. Right now, though, as we set up that shot, guys, this little peer into our newsroom as we continue with Fox 5 Live here in on the digital show during lunch. So we're going to go over to Capitol Hill. There's a DREAM Act DACA sort of rally going on live. So let's check into there while we set up for the second part of this video from the press conference about this case being closed.
The rumble of people all across the country coming in from the coast of California to New York to the southern border. And we are ready because we know that this is our fight, this is our moment, and that we are here to stay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Clarissa Martinez. It's worth drawing the parallel to the healthcare fight. That was a fight that drew in the entire progressive movement. We stood together in that fight and we won. And in just the same way, the entire progressive movement, and much beyond it, stands together in this fight. At Move On, this is our #1 priority. I know that's true of many of our partner organizations as well. We will be fighting every day until we win. I'm so pleased to introduce our next speaker, representing a group that is fighting every day for years, and which will win. Juan Escalante of America's Voice. Thank you so much for being here.
Buenas tardes. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Yeah. Good. Glad to hear. I wanted to begin by saying that I want to state once again, thank you for all the organizations that are working day and night to make sure that justice is served for the young people that could benefit from this great bill known as the DREAM Act. Basically, what we're trying to do by passing this bill is keeping young people away from the sights of Donald Trump's deportation force. My name is Juan Escalante. I am the digital campaigns manager for America's Voice, And I'm also a DACA recipient. And just like my brothers and sisters all across this country, I know that I will not stop fighting for the DREAM Act until we see its final passage and signed into law by President Donald Trump. I've been fighting for the DREAM Act since I was 17 years old. That's almost 10 years ago. And just like Gracia and many young people here, I have been to Capitol Hill numerous times advocating and fighting for this bill. And now, at the age of 28, I find myself once again in the legislative fight for my life. The DREAM Act has existed in Congress since 2001. Since then, Dreamers have fought for the recognition in the country that they call home. And they will continue to do so this year once again. Woo! We fought and won the DACA program in 2012 when President Obama gave us an opportunity and 800,000 young people like myself and Gracia and countless others to work, drive, and live without the constant fear of deportation. And now, in 2017, now that Donald Trump has killed the DACA program and has taken away this sense of security from Dreamers, we are committed once again to make sure that we don't go back into the shadows, but we raise our voices, stand united, and fight against this anti-immigrant extreme agenda. Let me be clear. Dreamers and their allies will not, and I repeat, will not let Donald Trump use our lives or our future in this country as a bargaining chip for a border wall, for more ICE agents, or additional detention beds. It is time for Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, to pass a clean DREAM Act. We do not want sympathy from politicians anymore. The time for action is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear it again for Juan Escalante in America's Voice. Here to stay. 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 Our next speaker is Diana Pliego from the National Immigration Law Center. Let's give her a warm round of applause and thanks for all the fighting that you and your colleagues do.
I feel incredibly blessed to be around such incredible people and fighters who are standing behind me and who stand behind me across this entire country. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here and for allowing me to speak. My name is Diana Pliego, and I'm currently a policy associate at the National Immigration Law Center, where I work every single day fighting for low-income immigrants and their families. I fight every day for me and my family. I came to the U.S. when I was just 3 years old. And while growing up was difficult financially due to my family's immigration status, I know no other country as home and would like nothing more than to stay here and to one day raise my children in the America that I love. I would like nothing more than to live out my dreams of becoming an attorney and helping those most in need here in the United States. Thanks to DACA, the possibilities for a brighter future opened up. I could do basic things like drive without fear. I could attend college, and I could work in the field that I studied. But President Trump's DACA termination brought my life plans to a bit of a halt. And now I and almost 800,000 young immigrants across this country are left in uncertainty, limbo, and fear, and this is unacceptable. We know there is sweeping support for a permanent solution for immigrant youth, and the number and variety of voices keep coming up. At the National Immigration Law Center, we've received calls from people from all across the country, from all walks of life. Educators, health professionals, local leaders, and so on, asking how they can help in this crisis. The people have spoken, and now it is time for the leaders in our Congress to heed their calls and act swiftly to pass a clean DREAM Act. The time to act is now, not tomorrow, it's now. Woo! We call on all members of Congress to hear the urgency in our calls and to take action now to pass a clean DREAM Act that does not use us as bargaining chips to hurt the rest of our community. We will not stand for that. And to my senator, Senator Lindsey Graham, thank you for showing leadership in this fight for opportunity. Thank you for showing us that we can come together regardless of political affiliation to do what is best for the future of our country. We now only ask that you do all you can to bring your colleagues together to ensure a quick and clean passage of the DREAM Act. Our communities need relief now. There is no time to wait. Thank you so much.
Woo! Woo! When Trump put the Muslim ban into place, thousands of lawyers flocked to airports to help people coming to the United States deal with an outrageous and unconstitutional attack on their rights. If DACA is allowed to expire, all of those lawyers and many more will be needed to help people fighting deportation. But we can prevent that. If everyone who went to an airport when the Muslim ban was announced, everyone who's tweeted or fought any of Donald Trump's racist and extreme policies joins this fight now. What is the path to victory on the DREAM Act? It is relentless, constant pressure and visibility every day on every member of Congress until the DREAM Act passes. And that's what we are committed to doing. I'd like to welcome our next speaker, Lizette Ocampo from People for the American Way, an organization fighting for this and on so many fronts for the kind of America we all deserve to grow up in. Thank you.
Thank you. So these petitions here that you see, the over 1 million petitions that people signed to pass a Clean Dream Act, they represent the overwhelming majority of Americans across the country who support the DREAM Act. And that's Americans across all political spectrum. We have 73% of Democrats, 69% of independents, 53% of Republicans all support protections like the DREAM Act. And most recently, when polled about passing a DREAM Act bill, nearly 60% of Americans said that they want to pass a DREAM Act bill. So this is something that Americans want. And why do Americans want this? Well, there are many reasons. I will highlight two. First, passing the DREAM Act provides economic prosperity to everyone. If we are not able to enjoy the benefits of having dreamers in our country, and if we are not able to protect them, the country could lose $460 billion of GDP economic growth. That means jobs for everyone. Dreamers are contributing to our local, state, and to our country, to the economies every day. Additionally, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's the morally right thing to do. Dreamers are part of our communities. They are part of our families. I'm a U.S. citizen, but I am part of a mixed status family. So when you think about the dreamers that are here and the 800,000 dreamers that are affected by this, obviously it's them, but it's not just them, it's their entire families. It's millions of people who are going to be impacted by this. People like me, my parents came from Mexico as immigrants to work as farm workers and in the agricultural area in California. And they worked hard to provide food for the table of Americans. So it's families like ours that are impacted by this. So it's the right thing to do, and it falls in line with our American values, and it falls in line with the American way. So, I want to summarize that it's, majority of Americans support this. It's good for the economy, it's good for everyone, and it's the right thing to do. And lastly, I just want to say, People for the American Way has been following the right wing, has been following extremists, has been following white supremacists for many years. Our right wing watch team counters and exposes some of the hate that we see and some of the extreme views that we see. And what we need to do now is, instead of pandering to extreme white supremacists, Congress needs to listen to the American people and pass a Clean Dream Act bill now.
Woo! Woo! Thank you. Dream Act now! 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 And it's worth pointing out the now part of that sentence. It is not enough to wait until next March. People are being hurt every day. The uncertainty, the disruption to people's lives, the threats to their jobs, the threats to their family, those are happening now. We need the DREAM Act now. Now. When do we need the DREAM Act? Now. What do we want? DREAM Act. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? DREAM Act. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? DREAM Act. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? DREAM Act. When do we want it? Now. I'd like to welcome our last speaker, Martin Negrete, a dreamer. Welcome with United We Dream. Thank you so much for being here and closing us out today.
Hi, my name is Martin Negrete, and I am undocumented and unafraid. I was 8 when I migrated into the United States. Throughout my life, my family and I have struggled to find our American dream because of fear of deportation, poverty, and homelessness. But DACA gave me the opportunity to get a consistent job, go to college, and begin my entrepreneur plans. I gained confidence, opportunities, and most importantly, safety. With DACA, I became an activist, fighting for more rights and increasing opportunities for my community. In Washington State, we provide trainings and resources to undocumented immigrants. We've created programs in schools to help more students graduate in high school and seek higher education. Last week's announcement about the end of DACA put all those accomplishments in jeopardy. The sense of uneasiness and uncertainty that all undocumented immigrants feel came back, knowing that all I have worked for could be taken away. But I stand here today unafraid, because I know that this is just another obstacle that my community will tackle and go through. Today I stand here and I ask members of Congress to join us and fight for a standalone DREAM Act that will protect me and not hurt my family. Don't negotiate with our lives. Fight for immigrant youth like me who have made our communities and our country stronger. I also have a message to my immigrant community who may be afraid right now. You are not alone. We're here together. Join us. We are stronger than ever, and our unity is all power. We are here to stay. Understand that. Here to stay.
Here to stay. Here to stay.
Here to stay. Undocumented.
Unafraid.
Undocumented.
Unafraid.
Undocumented.
Unafraid.
Undocumented.
Unafraid.
Thank you.
We're here outside the Capitol. This is not the last time we will be here, but this is not our last stop today, because all of these more than 1 million signatures, almost 1.1 million signatures, are about to be delivered to the halls of Congress. For those who are going to bring these boxes and all these signatures into Congress, where's our friend Tim over here with the water bottle? He will be leading delegations in to where it is necessary to bring these boxes, to bring these petition signatures. You can follow him. You can speak to folks that are here with cameras, and we will all be joining together at every step along this fight, along with our brothers and sisters across the country, until we win. Thank you so much for being out here today. Thanks for being part of this fight. This is just the beginning.
All right, guys, and that pretty much wraps up the DREAM Act DACA rally from outside Capitol Hill. We're back in the newsroom here, and I want to show you something quickly. We are looking into this, what you see on your screen here. There is apparently a suspicious package reported outside the White House. So as we get more information on that, we'll bring that to you as well. We're going to go back over to part 2 of the press conference about the Lyons sisters that we promised you from this morning. So I know a lot of you on Facebook are watching for that. So let's finish up that one as we hear from another official down in Bedford County from this morning.
Evidence, most of which, or many of which, are his statements to law enforcement. And in every statement, the one consistent thread is his role has been in the abduction of the Lyons sisters, and never any sexual exploitation or at any interval did he ever suggest he was involved with their actual murder.
So why did he plead guilty to murder then?
He pled guilty to first-degree felony murder, which is defined by law.
Then why did he plead guilty?
Well, I'm going to answer your question if you give me a chance, okay? He pled guilty to first-degree felony murder, which is defined as a killing that occurs during the course and then commission of a felony. In this case, it was first-degree felony murder because the underlying felony was abduction with the intent to defile. And just because he's involved in that abduction, and the girls, the young sisters, were later murdered, at least one that we know of by the evidence, was done by someone other than him, and he is not guilty of the actual perpetrator. And that was significant. I'm sure you know this covering it, but it's significant because this is a death penalty case. And in 1975, the triggerman rule in Virginia was not in place, but today it is, which means that you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to be eligible for the death penalty that you are the person that committed the murder. You were the agency of that killing. And in this, there's an exception to that, murder for hire, but that was not the allegations in this case. So the Commonwealth was stressed to have any evidence that Mr. Welch, in fact, there's no credible or reliable evidence that I'm aware of that suggests Mr. Welch was the perpetrator of the murder of the Lyons sisters. Yes, sir.
So then, who was it?
Say it again.
Who was it if not him?
I don't know if the Commonwealth has released those names or what they have said. That's not been a matter of public record. I think it's important for us to protect that confidentiality given the nature of the evidence, and that's a question I would defer to the Commonwealth attorney on.
Have you had some insight into the character of Lloyd Welch, who, even at 18, would have got two beautiful little girls?
Yeah, I'm sorry I had a hard time hearing that because the question's over here. Are you asking about Lloyd's?
Can you offer us some insight into the character of Lloyd Welch? What kind of person would have got two beautiful young girls, even at the behest of others?
Well, you know, character is an issue that's hard to quantify. I can tell you about Lloyd Welch's life. I can tell you that he was abused and mistreated himself. He was placed in foster care and homes. He was abused in those homes. He became addicted to drugs at an early age. Our evidence would have been from our healthcare professionals through the testing that they had prescribed and administered to him that he's barely at a functional IQ level. When you talk about character in the criminal setting, it's rare to ever find those accused to be the person that you'd find sitting next to you in the church service. But you find a lot of people who occupy the defendant's chairs as an accused who suffer from many maladies. And in this case, Lloyd was an abused individual. He was limited in intellect, and he was easily manipulated by those who had that authority and for whom he feared during those early years and even into his young teenage years.
I believe I heard the prosecutor say that even though he only admits participating in the abduction, he knew that the girls were going to be sexually exploited and killed.
I do believe the prosecutor said that, and I believe that the evidence that we have in this case would have supported that conclusion.
In his many stories, did he ever say that Richard Welch was not involved? He said it one time, or at least one time. Did he ever go back and say that he was not involved?
You know, I'm going to defer to the Commonwealth attorney on stating names and what was within some of the statements.
Can I just follow up? If he knew that the girls were going to be sexually abused and killed, what is your claim about why he participated in that?
Well, you changed the question on me. You said participated and killed. He didn't know they were going to be killed. He knew that they were going to be exploited. There's no evidence that he had knowledge that the people who were the perpetrators of the exploitation would commit homicides against them.
Why did he participate in this then if he knew they were going to be sexually exploited?
Yeah, well, that's a question I don't have an answer for.
Was there a plan for after the exploitation? What was to happen to these girls?
We don't know from the evidence. Can't answer that.
So, Mr. Anderson, the Commonwealth attorney said he's not personally ready to call anybody else a person of interest, and that investigators are teamed with this result. If you're saying Mr. Welch didn't do it, is somebody dropping the ball? Did somebody need to continue investigating this person?
I think they did an excellent job after 40 years essentially, relocating Mr. Welch and making him a person of interest and investigate it. You are probably aware that there was a multiple jurisdiction grand jury that investigated these allegations. They called many witnesses to that grand jury, some of which have been released. It's a secret proceeding, as all grand jury proceedings are. But again, I would defer to Mr. Nance and how he determines it's best for him and his investigation to talk about who may be persons of interest and how they may proceed on that.
Did you say that his father was involved in the murder of his mother?
I believe it was an involuntary manslaughter. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce to you Sam Dworkin. And Sam, I'm going to cold call you here a little bit because Sam was one of our investigators and mitigation specialists in this case, and that's his expertise. I'm going to ask you to address that if you would, Sam.
Sure. Yeah, when Lloyd was about 4 years old, his father, we know this from newspaper archives, his father was charged with involuntary manslaughter in the death of his mother. Lloyd was in the car, as was his father was driving, his mother was a passenger, and there was a car accident and a wreck, and she died shortly after. Approximately 2 years before that, Lloyd's father was also involved in another car accident in which he had thrown a woman from a car. She survived, but this is, I think, what Mr. Anderson was alluding to in the past and what some of the factors that went to shape kind of Lloyd's development.
What was the legal theory under which he was charged with involuntary manslaughter?
I'm not sure exactly. Again, some of this is from old archives back in the 60s, 1960.
Was he drunk?
I'm sorry?
Did you say a train hit the car? I thought I heard something.
It was around train tracks. Now, the car hit a utility pole, so I think it was an intentional driving into this pole that caused his mother's death.
Near train tracks.
Correct. Yeah, there was not a train involved. No.
Do you guys realize that what you're saying here today, you're saying he's remorseful, you're not really quantifying it, you didn't express it, there's no letter, there's no nothing. It still leaves his family, closure's hard to find, so maybe they would never get it, but it's just leaving that out there for them.
It's a tough situation, and we respect the Lyons family immensely. I can't imagine the amount of pain and loss and agony they've experienced over the 42 years. Our hope was, and I tended to express that, maybe I didn't do such a good a job for that, but I wanted to make sure that they knew from Lloyd's perspective and from the whole defense team that we hoped in some small way that it would bring some closure for them today. We never were so flippant to suggest that anything we did in the representation of Mr. Welch could result in any type of solace for the Lyons family. But our hope is that in looking across the spectrum of what it is we do in these cases, that we were able to communicate to them our sincere hope that this brought them some closure today.
How does Mr. Welch account for the fact that in 1975 he went to the police with a story about seeing another person in that mall and these discrepancies that he's had in his story since then?
I don't know if you were covering any of the early motions hearings when some of the statements were challenged and what the substance of those statements were that were put in the record. And my recollection, it's always dangerous to rely on that, but my recollection is that it came in one of the statements that there was an early reward that was offered for information leading to the disappearance, and he may have responded to one of the security officers there in an attempt to recover some of the tip money, if you will, in a tip to the officers about it. And someone recognized him. There was an early sketch done, and they found the arrest records, and they thought, and I'm sure you've seen those sketches and photographs. I think I saw those somewhere. The resemblance was pretty strong.
The prosecutor said so that, over the different interviews, the dozen different interviews, that he's involved with different people at different times. How do you account for that?
How does he account for who, Mr. Welch?
Yeah.
I think Mr. Welch and his statements has always been fairly consistent in the people that he implicated and the number of those that were implicated, and in my understanding is some of which has been able to have been corroborated by law enforcement. But again, I'm not going to get into who those people are, whether they're dead, or whether Mr. Nance considers any of them to still be a person of interest. I have great respect for Mr. Nance and the way he's handled this prosecution. I said on the record that he inherited this case. I think he was the chief assistant when this case was indicted, and he has done a very professional and outstanding job, served the citizens of Bedford County very well, and the way he picked up this case and continued to prosecute it. And I want each of you to recall that this was originally charged as a capital murder. It is charged as a capital murder case, and that in and of itself, because of the occurrences over the 42-year history of the death penalty, created many hurdles that Mr. Nance and his team would have to overcome.
When did you start negotiations on this plea deal and when was it reached?
I'm sorry?
When did you start negotiations on this plea deal and when was it reached?
The negotiations began several weeks ago. I think the final signature may have been acquired after 5 o'clock last night. And so it was. We always thought we'd make 9 o'clock today, but for a while there, yesterday afternoon, I had some moments when I might have been hollering and screaming a little bit. Okay, thank you all very much. I'll ask you if any of my colleagues have any other statements you want to make.
Just state your name and spell it, please.
Jordan, Jordon Spieth, Speith. No. Tony, you weren't in here a minute ago when we did that. Tony, Tonyyanderson. I only want to be Jordan Spieth. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, guys, with that, thanks so much for watching our stream today. A lot of coverage of the Lyons sisters and that cold case that has now been solved after more than 40 years. That was all back in the 70s. And if you missed the interview that we did with our reporter, Paul Wagner, he was down in Bedford County, Virginia. You can click on that on our Facebook page. We have it clipped out. Also, when this stream stops, you can go back and check it out there. I'm also being informed right now, the Apple event is happening live right now, and they're announcing some new iPhones, some new stuff about the Apple Watch and all that. So I don't actually have that feed that I can bring you on here, but that's sort of happening right now in breaking news. I'm going to show you quickly a weather slate for a quick break, and then we're going to go over to an update from this morning. The governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, gave an update on the state's recovery after the hurricane. So take a look at this, and then we'll be right back.
To open them. We'd like to thank our local county partners for being good hosts. We're going to start demobilizing assets today, resources that we don't think that we need anymore, that include things like swiftwater rescue teams and those types of items where there's not really a need for them. And by the end of the day, the state emergency operations center should be at a level to where we will have people here tonight to answer any requests for resources, because we know that our local partners are still out there working away. We want to make sure that we're prepared to bring any response to help them at all in any way that they need. And also, we need to be ready for preliminary damage assessments in case they request those. We'll also be continuing to work with our DOT partners and our National Guard partners in the event they get requested to send mission packages down south to help our partners down in Florida. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for all the hard work and the excellent job that you and your team are doing and have done in preparing North Carolina for this response. I want to call on Secretary Trockton to give us an update on our roads. Jim?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Governor. As of this morning, all of our interstates were open, and we had good traffic flow at nearly all of those at posted speeds. Our ferry routes are all open. We had to suspend some routes yesterday late in the afternoon due to high winds. We anticipate, and we're receiving reports currently on roads that are closed or closing in the western part of the state. So I'll start with probably the most significant was a short closure, we believe, on I-40 in Buncombe County due to a down power line. That line is de-energized, and Duke Power is already on site to make sure that's open, but the route is open now. We had another one in Buncombe County on US 70, a short section that was closed due to high water and downed trees, but we believe that one will be open very quickly as well. Jackson and Macon appear to be the counties most significantly impacted. The engineer there anticipates more than 30 trees per county in those areas. We don't have exact roads yet which are closed, but we know NC 28 near Highlands is closed specifically due to downed trees. We're doing the assessment. We're moving crews in. We anticipate those roads will be open either today or tomorrow, depending on the numbers that we see. Winds were still this morning, as of this morning, still gusting at 50 miles an hour. So we're taking precaution to make sure crews are actually doing a good assessment, but not putting themselves in harm's way unduly until the winds die down enough to start making all the repairs. So in those locations, we're making repairs as rapidly as possible. We anticipate it'll take, because of the volume of debris we see, a day or two to get all the roads open, particularly in those counties as well as Henderson, and then a couple of weeks to get all the debris up, but we anticipate the roads will be open within a day or two. Also in Henderson County, US 64, just east of Hendersonville, near Bat Cave, down trees and power lines there as well, and Duke Energy was already on site this morning. So I anticipate the story across those counties from Buncombe, Henderson, Jackson, and Macon. But we're assessing all the damage this morning, and then we'll be pushing crews to assist them from Graham and Swain counties, as well as potentially from the Gaston County, Rutherford County area, all the way up to Watauga County, moving crews in to assist to clear those roads as rapidly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you for the good work of DOT. Even though North Carolina still does have thousands of residents without power, and there are a number of road closures, they're working on these and hoping to get power back as quickly as possible and get these roads cleared. And all things considered, most of North Carolina has been very fortunate in the wake of Hurricane Irma. Some of our neighbors to the south have not been as fortunate. We continue to reach out to Florida, Georgia, and others to see what help we can provide as they begin what we know will be a long recovery period. We have experienced that. Already North Carolina is helping. Yesterday, our Air National Guard flew missions to move needed equipment, personnel, and supplies from the Midwest to Jacksonville, Florida. And some of our National Guard members are on standby to deploy to the U.S. Virgin Islands if needed. Thank you, General Lusk, for your continued good work, and everyone at the North Carolina National Guard for being ready to go wherever you're needed in times of trouble. The North Carolina Department of Transportation is going to send about 200 employees from the central part of North Carolina to South Florida to help cut trees and move them out of the way so that traffic can get through. And we are also continuing to welcome evacuees who come to North Carolina to escape the brunt of the storm. And 5 shelters remain open in our state in Gaston, Guilford, Henderson, Johnston, and Mecklenburg counties. And they have, as Mike told you, provided relief to a number of people who have stayed overnight and who came by to get some needed rest. And we are continuing to keep a close eye on Hurricane Jose. It's still too soon to tell what, if any, impacts that we might see from that storm. But as we have seen, forecast tracks can change often and widely, so we need to remain alert here in North Carolina. We know a lot of people got themselves ready for this event, and we urge you to keep any unused emergency supplies that you may have gathered for Irma in your emergency kit for future needs. We hope they don't come, but it's good to have them. And as a reminder, if you need to find a shelter or to report a power outage, you can download the Ready NC app, readync.org, or call 211 for information. And we'll be glad to take any questions that you might have. Yes, John.
Shelters, as I understand it, 5 shelters have been opened previously and were largely intended for people coming up from the south, running away from Irma there. Have shelters been opened in the western part of the state for people, North Carolina residents, or is it? I thought when you said 5, I thought it was 5 and 5. I thought we were talking about 10 shelters. But how are we using those, and who are they intended for? And
I'll let you take that.
So these shelters were intended for evacuees from the southern, from our southern partners. And so if a county decides that they need to open a shelter, they will open a shelter. But we've received no reports of any shelter openings at this time. But those shelters were intended for evacuees that are moving north.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks very much. We appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. I expect this to be the last one, yes, but we'll let you know if anything changes from that. We still have a lot of people without power and some roads closed, but hoping that during the day that things continue to significantly improve and that we won't have to do another update. Okay, thanks.
All right, guys, with that, we're going to bring it inside the newsroom again as we wait for the White House press briefing to begin. Should be around 2 o'clock today. So we're going to switch it up and bring you back to the story of the day, really, guys, which is the Lyons sisters cold case that was solved today. And if we have any other breaking news, I'm going to cut into this, but we're going to replay the statement from the parents, the family of the sisters who are now that much older. They spoke today with other officials from Montgomery County after this was all decided and after he pled guilty this morning. So we're going to play that out and keep an eye also on this, the White House. White House press briefing should be coming up at 2 o'clock or so, so we'll keep our eye on that to bring that to you live.
Well, it's been a long road, and our family here, we want to express sincere gratitude to so many people. I'm not going to name names, it would take all day. I know I'd forget somebody. But specifically the FBI, SAT teams, technical personnel, Sheriff's Department of Bedford County, Virginia State Police, Montgomery County State's Attorney's Office, the Bedford County Commonwealth Attorney's Office and former Commonwealth Attorney, and the victim assistant who's been working with us for all this time. Our thanks to the people involved all the years to help push this case to where it is today. And I'm sure there are many others that we don't even know about, but it does not diminish our gratitude. Finally, a special place in our lives for the Montgomery County Police Department Cold Case Unit. There are representatives of them here today. The last 2 or 3 years or so, they have treated Sheila and Kate as if they were their own sisters or daughters. It's a tremendous display of performance, professional performance, but even more a beautiful emotional investment in the case and in our family. So on behalf of our family, this is Mary, this is Joe, that's Jay, the girls' sisters. This is Matt, our grandson, who's with us today as well. And we just want to say simply, thank you. And it's been a long, long time. And we're tired. And we just want to go home. Thank you all for being here.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Wes Nance. I'm the Commonwealth's attorney here in Bedford County. I'll have some short prepared statements, and I'll be turning things over to John McCarthy, the state's attorney from Montgomery County, Maryland, and also Captain Darren Frank from the Montgomery County Police Department. It's been my deep privilege to be the lead prosecutor on this day of justice. But we wouldn't be here today without the amazing efforts of so many individuals and so many agencies. As Mr. Lyons said, there's almost too many to name. I will highlight some, but we have also prepared a written press release that will name more agencies and the individuals associated with those said agencies. My great appreciation begins with the Montgomery County Police Department and their cold case unit. These are the individuals who recognized Lloyd Welch Jr. as a person of interest in this case. Then they coordinated his interviews and the underlying admissions to form the backbone of the investigation and ultimately the successful prosecution. Those interviews led to a coordinated effort with Bedford County Sheriff's Office, the Virginia State Police, the FBI, Division of Forensic Science here in Virginia and in Montgomery County Police Department, Prince William's Law Enforcement Agency, and their Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. And certainly not least the Montgomery County State Attorney's Office, led by Mr. McCarthy, who assisted throughout this entire process, and we certainly appreciate their support. I would like to also thank my predecessor, the Honorable Randy Krantz, for the courage to have this 6-attorney office spearhead the prosecution of this over 40-year-old bodiless cold case investigation. It's perhaps one of the oldest bodiless prosecutions this nation has ever seen, and his leadership and mentorship cannot be minimized. I also have to thank my entire office because with a case of this age and of this size, and with an office of the size of ours, every person is affected. Mr. Tim Griffin was the second chair on this case and was very instrumental in the pre-trial motions that allowed us the opportunity to ask for death penalty had this case gone to trial. As we prepared for trial, I brought in Ms. Stephanie Ayers, who unfortunately is in training this week, but she would have spearheaded the sentencing phase of this case. My legal assistant, Ms. Stephanie Wooten, helped to coordinate the discovery of the volumes of discovery that Mr. Anderson spoke about in the courtroom. Then obviously Ms. Krista Calhoun, our victim witness advocate, who was always there for the Lyon family whenever they had a question or a need arose. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, I want to thank the Lyon family themselves. It's been an honor to work for them in this most honorable of cases and causes. I greatly appreciate their support through this very grueling process. This is a good day for the cause of justice. It will not give the family closure, nor all the answers that they deserve. With that being said, it's been my true honor to work with them and the numerous law enforcement agencies that worked this case over the last several years. It's been a deep, deep privilege to be able to stand at counsel table and have Lloyd Lee Welch Jr. come into the courtroom, and utter the words guilty. Thank you again for being here, and with that, I'll turn things over to Mr. John McCarthy. Afterwards, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think it's an emotional day for everybody from Montgomery County. This was a day back in March of 1975 that changed everything for how we lived. I want to thank Wes Nance. I will tell you, Wes, you could not have had a better partner and someone who worked more professionally with us as we coordinated a resolution towards today and what happened in court. And I want to thank him very much for all of the kindness this is extended to the people to Montgomery County. Captain Darren Frank, his cold case unit, Detective Dave, you heard his name mentioned. There were multiple interviews of Lloyd Welch over several year period of time, 13 interviews. Mr. Detective Davis conducted almost all of those interviews. They were essential. I think all of those officers deserve an enormous amount of credit. I'd also like to join Wes in thanking Randy Krantz. Let me tell you, this is a small community that took on an enormous burden an enormous cost and time to help us bring some justice in the name of Catherine and Sheila, and we are forever grateful to the people of Bedford County for what they've done. Thank you, Randy Krantz. Thank you, Judge Krantz, for the work that you did on this case to inspire the people down here to do what was necessary to bring justice for this family. I will tell you, I don't know that I've ever seen investigators, the cold case unit, officers from Montgomery County, or the officers down here that took and invested their time in making sure that no stone went unturned in this investigation. Thank you for your never say die attitude towards going forward in this case. My thoughts and prayers go to the Lyons family. These are fabulous people. I watched how quietly you listened as John stood up here and had the courage to talk, finally after 42 years, about the loss of his 2 children. I met John many years ago. John is a guy who served my community. He was a victim witness coordinator, helped many, many families in many cases that I prosecuted, rapes, robberies, murders. John stood with me and helped other families while the murders of his daughters went unsolved in my county. That's how I know John Lyon. His son, Jay, was a Montgomery County retired police officer, gave back to the community. This is a spectacular family and part of the fabric of Montgomery County. We've lived with this for decades. And again, that day in March was the day we lost our innocence. We began to rear our children differently. We began to think differently about what we could do. I guess there's no way to turn that clock back, but the entire region was affected by this case. Look, this has been a long road. The abduction of these girls began in my county. Unfortunately for Sheila and Catherine, they were very, very quickly taken from Montgomery County, and the crimes that the police were entered into today did not take place in Montgomery County. They were taken into Prince George's County. They were taken down into Virginia. Many things happened here that were unspeakable crimes against these children, and occurred in multiple jurisdictions beyond borders of Montgomery County, beyond where we had jurisdiction. I just want the people of Montgomery County to know that, again, we are thankful to Wes and the people of Bedford County. The resolution that we reached here today was after consultation on a repeated basis with John and Mary Lyon. I will tell you, we're here today because John and the family, they needed this resolution. They needed this to end. They need this to be over and to get on with their lives. I will tell you, it's been very, very hard for them these last several years as more details have come out about what happened. This has not been an easy 2 years for this family. But again, we are forever grateful for their courage. I was honored to be in the same room with John Lyon today, and Mary Lyon, and their sons, and their grandson. And again, thank you to all of you that have come here. And again, final, Wes, thank you very much.
Good morning. Captain Darren Frank. I'm the director of the Major Crimes Division for the Montgomery County Department of Police. And I have the honor of working with the men and women of our cold case section. On March 25th, 1975, Montgomery County Police began investigating the disappearance of Catherine and Sheila Lyon. In the 42 years, 5 months, and 18 days since then, our department has never stopped searching for them. Today, a despicable human being, Lloyd Welch, answered for his part in the crimes against Catherine and Sheila, the Lyon family, and our community. The operation to hold him accountable was appropriately called Worthy Cause. We are thankful for the law enforcement professionals that joined us in this worthy cause. We are indebted to the Bedford County Sheriffs and Sheriff Brown, the Montgomery County State's Attorney, the Prince William County Police and Commonwealth Attorney, the FBI, the Honorable Randy Krantz, and Wes Nance and his team. 3 years ago today, we dropped in on your community, and you stood with us. My cold case section has worked tirelessly for the last 4 years to make today's proceedings possible. Chris, Mark, Dave, Katie, Frank, and Brian are very special investigators, and I thank them for their sacrifice. There is not a thing that my team can do to bring peace to the Lyon family. That is theirs to find. I just want you to know that we worked hard and we wish we could do more. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that's all the prepared statements that we have. Unfortunately, I saw some of the real heroes of this case avoid the limelight and sneak out. That's the cold case investigators themselves who, without them, this day just would not have taken place. And I would urge you that perhaps try to find them at some point, because those are the heroes that need to be spoken to get quotes from, and to understand how we got to this day. Now, with that being said, although I do need to get back to the family, I could take a few short questions if there are.
Mr. Anderson seemed to suggest that while Lloyd Welch had admitted to being involved, that he did not kill or abuse these two beautiful young girls. Is that your understanding?
Well, that's certainly his statement, and that was consistent with his statements throughout this process. You know, how much you believe him, it really cut to the heart of this case. Certainly his involvement under the legal theories that we spoke about in court today, felony murder or concert of action, holds him responsible for their deaths, even though he did not admit to participating. His credibility is open for questioning, however, as the individuals that he named as his co-conspirators changed over time. What did not change was his involvement, and at the end of the day, his involvement is what these investigators were able to corroborate at the beginning, in the middle, and the end.
Did somebody else escape justice in this abduction and murder?
I think that's an open-ended question. If you believe Lloyd Welch, then yes, there are others to be held accountable. I do know that there was tireless efforts through the multi-jurisdictional grand jury here, numerous search warrants, witness interviews, person of interest interviews that did not lead to the point of probable cause like we had on Lloyd Welch. I think because of the open nature of his statements and the inconsistency of his statements, that leads to some conjecture, and there's probably even differences of opinion within the prosecution and investigation team itself. What I can tell you is that in my heart of hearts, I know we've put one of the main perpetrators away for all intents and purposes the rest of his life.
In the last news conference, your agency, you weren't here yet, named Richard Welch very publicly as a person of interest in this case. He's never been charged. What is his status?
I think different members of the team may have different opinions of that. I would tell you that with my association with the case and with the intensive investigations that have taken place, I'm no longer comfortable calling any other individual a person of interest. Lloyd Welch has identified a number of different individuals, and that cast of characters changed over time. And so, although this investigation certainly could have a subsequent phase, I'm not prepared personally to call anyone else a person of interest at this time.
Do you think there will be additional prosecution connected to this case, or is this done?
It's very...
What have we done today?
We've closed the chapter on Lloyd Welch. Now, one thing that was not mentioned as part of this plea agreement, which is very important, is that on Thursday, as part of this plea agreement, he gave a final proffer to law enforcement to see whether there was anything additional that he was willing to or able to provide to the investigators. Now, out of discretion for the family and also discretion for the investigation itself, I'm not going to go into details of that, but I can tell you that once again, he limited his role and blamed others, and the others that he blamed.
All right, guys, we are back inside the newsroom because we're going to talk about Apple really quickly to pretty much end the show. We kind of already played out this press conference about the Lyons sisters, definitely the biggest news of the day. But right now, as we speak, there's a big Apple event going on to announce the new iPhone. And we were talking about this morning in the morning show. It's going to be $1,000, and it's so okay.
$1,000.
This is the 7, I think. What do you? Yours is the.
This is an iPhone.
Oh wait, I have to look. So we were wondering what you guys think about this. It's going to be $1,000. We're literally getting this video in now. I can't stream it because I don't think we have the rights to be able to do that. But they're unveiling what it looks like, and they just put it up. There was like 3 different colors. What do you think about this, T? Being the IT guy here.
I think it's big.
It's a big release.
Usually when Apple releases stuff, it's a bunch of stuff together. So I guess iPhone 8, iPhone 8 Plus, Apple Watch 3.
They're redoing
Apple TV 4K.
Oh.
So they're releasing a bunch of stuff, but in the mix of it all, yes, iPhone 8 is going to drop.
And you guys should see this. It's like insane with the comments. Everyone's just talking about it. 400,000 people watching. It's the latest smartphone. But you said that one of the bigger differences with the watch is that it's going to be
the watch you are able
completely
mobile on its own. The old ones had to depend on the user's iPhone to sync in with the watch. I think now the new one, you will be able to basically go for a run and everything will come to your watch. You can leave your phone at home basically.
Okay, but then it still like chips into your data, so it's like you're either using your phone or your watch.
So it's a built-in mobile connection basically. So you'll probably be burning data unless you have unlimited.
Right.
Many people do if you can afford a $1,000 phone.
Are people gonna buy this? Like, what do you think? I mean, there's a ton of obviously hype. People want it.
Yeah, people want it. I'm personally not gonna buy it anytime soon because I can't afford such a price tag. But people usually camp out for these things.
I know Graham. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
One of my viewers was talking about this earlier, so I'm not sure if he's on now, but I want to see what people think. Are they going to buy it? Are they going to buy other things with it? Some of the other featured things, the watch, the other things that they're releasing.
The 4K TV sounds interesting too. So I guess
wait and see.
The resolution just got even better from the last Apple TV that they had.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to look at the specs and like compare the different types. I mean, there's still devotees to other types of phones too, but like, it goes both ways. So anyway, big announcement today. It's literally happening as we speak. The big Apple event. I know there's a bunch of reporters there.
iOS 11 is also releasing for current Apple owners.
For the updated operating system. Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty good. Big in tech news.
Big stuff. I'm not sure if the hype is the same as previous years, but definitely exciting. I feel like the iPhone 8 will definitely have a better camera, faster processor, etc. I wonder what's next. I feel like they've
exhausted.
Yeah, they're.
I mean, can they only up the camera quality and the other stuff? I mean,
I can only imagine
the storage.
I figured eventually the iPhone Watch, Apple Watch, whatever you want to call it, is gonna have a projection coming out of it. That's just my own personal prediction.
Maybe
how? So now they have new phones, like the new Motorola phone that came out. It comes with different attachments. You can put a SLR camera attachment on it, or you can add a projector and then
to project stuff.
Literally project video from your phone. So I think that's probably what's next, because 3D didn't really work out that well with certain things.
Is that to say that some of these other brands then are ahead of Apple in that? In a sense.
The way it's been trending, I think Android, Google, Samsung, they've been kind of on top of everything, and iPhone kind of likes to come later.
To have this big boost, this big hype. But if they do come later, are they second kind of best in some of the stuff?
Quality wise, I mean, everything Apple is pretty simple, easy to use, user friendly. Samsung, Android is a little more. It's more raw. So Samsung will come out with something, and then iPhone will probably be kind of take the idea and make it their own, and then kind of have it their way like that. I think Siri came out before or after Samsung had their own
voice
assistant.
Was that just Google Talk or whatever? No, maybe not. It was an assistant.
Google Assistant or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. They were kind of playing around with that, and then I think they sort of amped it up in some way. But
and then Apple came out
you're
with
right.
Siri, and then so that seems to be the trend. Apple kind of comes behind, but
it's interesting.
Quality-wise, I mean, their products are always solid. Apple products are pretty easy to use.
So we'll see what happens with the sale. I mean, are people gonna, hand out or give out $1,000 for this?
1,000, yeah, that's a lot. I would wait.
It is a lot.
And nowadays, you can't really.
There's no deals with phones right now.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that
I
before.
know it changed. I recently bought my new one, but it wasn't. This was the first time I bought it that was now in place. So it was like, okay, figuring out how you do it, buy it or lease it by paying it off.
Are you doing monthly payments on that?
I'm not. I bought it outright, but I didn't have to, and I wasn't gonna, but I was able to buy it outright, and I don't know. It's interesting. Except for a day, is it better to be leasing it or to buy it outright?
My friend today, he just told me that he just finished paying off his iPhone 7.
Man.
Just in time for the iPhone 8, so
And I was like, ka-ching, $1,000.
That's Apple's marketing too.
Oh my goodness, it's crazy. Well, some expertise here from our IT guy, Terrence. You might see him around a little more, the newsroom. It turns out the White House press briefing is pushed off until later this afternoon, so we're going to stream that solo to Facebook. And with that, we're going to close down our program here, but continue to follow us, of course, on digital and on air for more coverage of anything live and breaking. We'll have that for you guys, from Capitol Hill to tech news to everything that's going on, hurricane stuff. We'll talk to Gary again tomorrow for the weather. So join us here on the YouTube channel or on Facebook. And yeah, with that, we'll see you guys soon. Thanks, Steve, for your insight.
Of course, anytime. Always happy to.
Having a good tech day?
Yeah.
Look at that one. Cool. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.